Ollie, just going to start with yourself. So, just your approach along those lines as to how you prepare for training and matches. And currently, you're under
14s,
14. Yeah.
yeah, 14 Saturday Prime with Home Farm, yeah. Um, so yeah, my approach, I suppose, to just chatting there is I would tend to have sessions a bit all over the place, not as in when we go to do them, but I have some written down. I'd share some with the other guy that's coaching with me. I have some logged on the computer, so I'll probably need to get better at doing that. That wouldn't be seen as best practice, but I suppose we kind of do 2 week blocks, working in possession for 2 weeks, then out of possession in, say, the final third in possession, final third out of possession, and working away up and down the pitch that sort of way, and put together sessions on the back of that. Rather than, I suppose, when I started out, it would have been maybe reactive, like you play a game and then you go, oh, we need to work on our finishing. So you might do finishing then, and then you might move on to something else for the next week, and you go, well, I suppose as I've got into it and learned as I went along, you're going, no, this is the plan, this is the structure, this is what we're working to, and we kind of do a half season plan, so up to the break in December, and then sit down with the other coaches and review it again, then see what do we do for the next half of the season. Do we go back over the same thing, working away up and down the pitch, or do we look at some different things that we might need to incorporate into training? But there's always a plan to go, this is the structure, this is the blocks, this is what we're working on, and we work from there. And I think sometimes you tend to forget nearly to tell the players as well. You turn up and you do the session and you put it on, and then at the end you'll be breaking it down with the other coach and you go, before the session starts, this is the story, lads, this is the block we're working on, this is the plan for tonight, we're working on crossing and finishing or something, this is what we're doing, warm up into the next activity, into this is the flow of the session, and this is what we get at the end of it. So
Ollie, just from my point of view, right, I think I would be operating to the way you used to do it. Very much depending on the part of the season. So I'm at under 18 now, and I've gone the
yeah,
full, I've gone the full cycle, if you like, from under eights all the way up to under 18. But I, again, depend on the part of the season. But at the moment, I definitely would be working game to game, in terms of what needs fixing and working on that and training. So is there anything that caused you to move away from that approach?
um from that, yeah, no, because I just think we're still under 14s, and it's just getting them to learn the game as you go along. So, and I think it can be just rather than jumping from one thing to another. Because I say, if you're reactive like that, even in the season, you're going, one session is defending, then the next thing you might be doing attacking, then it might be a different phase of play. The next session, it's just jumping all over the place. So I like to, when I actually sorted out and went, this is the plan, this is what we're doing, that you can get it for, say, the 2 weeks that we do, that you can drum it into the guys for the 2 weeks, and no matter what happens, you're going, this is what we're looking at and this is what we're focusing on, even in games, for the 2 weeks. So say if it's in possession in the final third, or combination plays, or getting it wide into the box, that we're looking at, were we able to implement that, did we do it, what were the learnings? And obviously the VO then is great when you're recording games and you can look back at it and you can go to the guys, right, what are we working on in this block? Where we Did we do it on Saturday in the game, or did we not? How did you think it went?
And does
Um,
that mean, say, for example, you get to halftime and in a match situation that your focus is on what you were working on, or so let's say you are working on, if, attacking in the final third, but you've conceded two goals. Do
yeah,
you, do you divert back to halftime? Well, you can't go back. As I always say to my lads, you can never go back. So
yeah, yeah,
even bringing it up in the halftime, you're kind of going, what was the point? So because you have to move
yeah.
forward.
I think you still
Would
have
you
to.
focus on those things
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
main? Yeah.
yeah. I would. You would address that. Like, obviously, if you were 2 or 3 nil down at halftime,
Mm.
you would have to address the conceding goals and how you were conceding them, and if it's something you need to rectify for the second half.
But at the
But
same time, you still need to score to try and
you
get back
still need to
in the
score. Yeah,
game.
yeah. So
Yeah.
like the
Mm.
still the bigger picture stuff is, this is what we're working on.
Mm.
need to be implemented. If we're on the back foot for most of the game, you're not going to have many opportunities to
Yeah.
score or to get into the final third or creating chances. So then you got to look at that. But yeah,
Because I sometimes struggle with that at half time. So say for example we've conceded two goals and you've only got a couple of minutes at half time, that
yeah,
what is the benefit of, granted you want to learn from it so that you don't concede another goal or two, but at that point you kind of need to score. So you're kind of going,
yeah,
well, I'm probably better off parking the two, if there were two mistakes or whatever led to those goals, parking that until Tuesday's training and
yeah,
maybe telling the lads. Yes, I often think I need to acknowledge the fact to the lads, rightly or wrongly, that I've seen it. So
yeah.
if I don't say something, they might be thinking, "What sort of a coach is this fella?" You know what I mean? He hasn't even mentioned the two goals, but you can't go back to fix it at half time. Do you know what I mean? And equally, you need to score, so you need to focus on how to get back in the game.
Yeah, yeah. And look, at halftime is a tricky time anyway. And I think I spoke to you before, and like I've seen lots of stuff around it. What should you focus on? Like that, should you be looking back or looking forward? And there's one thing that kind of stuck with me. It was like that: stop, start, continue, stop. Like stop conceding goals, obviously. But is there something that you can just, without overloading them with info? Is this just something you can tweak? Is there something you need to start doing? And then is there something that you've been doing well that continue on doing that works? And it's just 3 points. And I
Okay.
think that's probably the key thing for halftime would be any more than
Would
three
you
points.
base your
You're,
halftime on that kind of formula?
yeah, I try
Yeah,
to.
yeah,
Now,
yeah.
sometimes it goes out the window,
Mm,
the
of course.
emotion of the game, or you say you could be, we were 3-0 down a couple of weeks ago and you're going, my God, and it could have been 5 or 6. Trying to think, oh, what am I going to say? And on reflection, probably should have just gone, right, lads, park that and just reinforce what's our, what are we good at? What did we set out to do? Have we done that? No, right. How can we start doing that in the second half? And you go out doing it rather than you say going over the 35 minutes that's just gone, going, we're not doing this, we're not doing that. And like that, sometimes you might get 3 or 4 minutes, sometimes you might get 7 or 8 minutes, in the schoolboy games. I don't think to just say, oh, you have 10 minutes. Next thing the ref's blowing the whistle and the players are back out in the pitch before you know it, and you're going, geez, I never said about that or said about
Mm,
that. And sometimes I think I should maybe take notes on the sideline. I don't do that during the first half and go,
mm.
here's the key points we need to work on
I take
or we need to get
notes
across.
maybe a couple of minutes before half time, and it's mainly like a crutch for me that I won't forget to say them. I suppose I built
Yeah,
them up in the first half. And without going down a rabbit hole on half time, I I always find that if we're winning, and I have to say we're not generally winning right at half
yeah,
time, but when we are or if we are, I always find the team talk much more difficult when you're winning because there's a tendency, now maybe you're saying, Ollie, you need to refer back to the things you're working on, but there is a tendency to say, let's keep doing what we're doing.
yeah.
But while you're saying that, the manager of the other team is changing things because they need to.
Yeah, yeah. And it was part, sorry, on half time as well. We'd always ask the players first. Like myself and the coach, Brendan, that's with me, we'd have a chat and go, what are we doing? What are the changes? Because we normally make changes at half time anyway.
Hmm.
So what are the changes? What do we need to say to them? And then we call them in and then we ask them, right, lads, what did you think of that? And get them to feed back into us. Because as you know, from playing on the pitch and being on the sideline, you can get a total different perception of the game. Like so, either playing, you're coaching, or even sitting in the stands, like emotionally not involved in the game, you can
So are
get
you
three
saying the
different
first minute
pictures.
or two of your half time is just leave the players together to gather
Yeah, yeah. Just
to
leave them.
hydrate and all that? Okay.
Yeah, yeah. I'll
Mm,
leave them chat, and you can overhear them sometimes going, "Oh, this or that or
mm,
whatever." And then we call them in and ask them, right, what
okay.
did you think about that? And then more than likely they'll pick up on stuff that's going well and not going well, and then we just maybe reinforce that. That's
Okay. Yeah.
ideal
Brilliant.
world,
Yeah.
not always
Paul,
come like
you're
that.
going back to training, Paul, or any what we're talking about there, just approaches, your own approach. Would you be of the totally different to what Ollie is doing or what I would be doing? Because we're myself and Ollie are doing different,
No, and
taking
come here.
different
Just
approaches.
I muted myself there for once. Paul would say Ali doesn't know me as well as Paul Hamill does, but I muted to just listen, and it's actually fascinating to listen. But I suppose for me, in it's not about whether I do it differently to Ollie or Ollie does it differently to you and I, Paul, or other coaches or whatever. It's what I suppose fits the squad of players and the hand we're dealt. The other thing I would say, just on the back of a couple of things, and I did write a couple of things down, but I should have wrote more down just in just listening to the both of you as well, is that sometimes in games as well, and I'll flick back to the training sessions as in a second, but just you were finishing out on games. In games as well, I suppose the squads that we run through it. So Ollie and yourself would be probably with the squads you're with all due respect now, 5 years plus, at this stage. And I suppose for me and the experience I've had of dealing with a squad for that length of time, over, I suppose, my coaching career, you sort of know probably how to fix it because you know the capabilities of your own players at that stage, you know their limitations, I suppose, at that stage. And they, like Ollie spoke about maybe a game, I think it was a few weeks ago, where we were a couple of goals down, 2 or 3 goals down at half time. But you've been in that situation before. Your players have been in that situation before. So, self-remedy from players as well, self-evaluation of each other, of each individual, I should say, and then an evaluation of what you see collectively happening on the pitch. Not saying you'll sort it out. You could still lose the game 4-2, but I suppose what you're looking at is nuggets of development in the second half within your team to see maybe you're looking at maybe people that might become leaders for you in the future as well. But you've played against a team that probably lumps the ball up the middle. You've played against teams that like to get width in the game. So you've seen this gig before. So you do know how to impart change. But I suppose ultimately as a coach, rather than us being the instructor, shall we say, when they come off at half time, it's how we make the players on the pitch, be instruct as they go on the pitch as well. Because in all fairness, you yourself will not, as a coach, turn a 3-0 deficit around without the buy-in from your players when you put them back out on the pitch or the
Paul,
changes you
Paul,
make.
can I just ask you and Ollie, right? And bear in mind, Ollie's lads are younger, mine are 17. And Paul, I know you recently enough were with a National League team for a few games was that under 19, was it?
17s.
Okay. What do you think the players are looking for from us at halftime?
From my own point of view,
Yeah.
um, from my own point, and it's a great question because we're covering three gambits here as well. We're talking about young kids starting out in their careers. And Ollie, I'm thinking of your squad when I was in home farm, and they were probably under 10s or 11s at
Yeah,
that
yeah.
stage or whatever. And that's what I get a picture of, and that's the picture I'm holding now as I'm talking as well. Uh, that type of player wants inclusion. They want to try and probably get better. They want to be part of something. They want friendships. They want social interaction. And ultimately, obviously, if you start winning more than you're losing, they want to maybe have a trophy at the end of it because they're cute enough at 10, 11 years of age to know what winning and
Paul,
losing is
on
all
that
about.
basis, what do you think they're looking for at halftime from you?
At half time, then what they're looking for is I suppose they're just at that age, Paul, they're still looking for direction off us, without a shadow of a doubt. And they want help because if it's not happening, they need to understand as well that sometimes the coach might need to make a change and that the change might affect the individual, where the individual might have to come off the field for another individual to come on that
Hmm.
makes an impact in the game. It's how we handle situations like that if we have to actually make personnel change at 10s, 11s,
And
to
Paul,
bring
what
on
about,
better.
if you don't mind, about the under 17s? What was that like, National League at
Well,
halftime?
I was going to tip into yours
What
quickly,
are they looking
because
for? Yeah.
yeah, I was going to tip into yours and move into the
Sorry,
League of
yeah,
Ireland
go ahead.
side as well. So
Yeah.
tipping into yours, Paul,
Hmm.
it really is about just putting them back out there because it's more of a community type team, and yes, winning is important to them, but I think them talking about what they're doing in the evening times and the concerts they're going to at the weekends and the game of ball beforehand in at your end of it is probably paramount. If that was put on its head and that was a Premier type team in League of Ireland, It's not too dissimilar, by the way, because the better players are gone out of the league the league system at that the DDSL league at that stage, and then they link in with where I'm going in League of Ireland under 17s or 18s. Paul, we'll say your type of age group as well. They need the whiteboard on the sideline. They need then just clear instruction on individual mistakes that were made. We would have had to go through that type of individual mistakes, and we had to be quite harsh, I suppose, as a coach, stroke manager. It was Adam Foley and myself, Adam Drogheda United, Adam, Ollie, and Paul. Adam Foley and myself took the under 17s in Drogheda. That's what Paul is referring to, Ollie.
Yeah.
And that was definitely more an honest talk. That same chat wouldn't happen with under 10s, 11s, 12s, 13s. Wouldn't
But Paul,
happen.
do you think that player at that level is looking to be told that, or do they know that already? You know what I mean? What are they looking for?
They, I think it's reinforcement, Paul, at that
Mm,
stage. It's
mm,
reinforcement of something they probably already do know, but it's reinforcement of that then they need throughout the game because doubt sets in when something isn't happening. We played, for instance, St. Pat's under 17s at the time. Like they were littered with 4 or 5 internationals, and they bet us with a mishit cross into the box that eluded all defenders, everyone, and the goalkeeper as well crept into the far corner and they won 1-0. So that game, that was about us defending as a unit and as a team because we if we came out to compete against them, and this is what they had to understand in the week's preparation leading up to that, if we went toe to toe with Pats, you'd be looking at 6, 7 goals
mm.
going in against us. And that's not about development. So, but the disappointment in the guys was not the same disappointment as if they went out beaten 6 or 7 nil. There was actually a belief that now they can actually do better in games where they were failing before in defending.
Mm.
So there was a huge positive learning in that for us.
Ollie, with your team, what are they looking for from you? Particularly as I wasn't expecting this to be around half time, but we just happened to fall upon it. So what do you think they're looking
Uh,
for from you?
Certainly guidance, and I think maybe an air of confidence, or to give them confidence going back out on the pitch,
Mm,
that if they carry out the instructions they've been given, that they can be successful. Successful could be, say, if we were 3-0 down, got back into the game 3-1, 3-2, could have been 4-2, whatever, that you can go, right, lads, we got back in the game. So the second half was successful. And you just think it's, yeah, giving them that confidence, that belief, going back out again, that
mm.
if you have a plan or whatever you're working to, if we do X, Y, and Z and continue to do that for the next half, that the outcome will
Yeah.
be different
So it's
from the
not
first half.
necessarily they're looking for weaknesses in the other team, or they're looking for you to come up with some nugget of lads. If we go down the right wing, their left full is a bit weak or whatever. It sounds more like a psychological thing to reinforce and to give them the confidence to go, listen, if we keep doing what we're doing, we will succeed.
Yeah, yeah. Or look, it might not be keep doing what we're doing, but like say if you're going into the game saying like that, we need to get if we get the ball wide and get down the channels and get balls into the box, we can cause these problems and we can score goals. That's our strengths. If
Mm.
we weren't doing that in the first half, three and going out, guys, what we spoke about is getting the balls wide. We haven't got the balls wide. We haven't got at the fullbacks. We haven't got balls in the box. If we do that for this half, we might be able to get something out of the game. We might be able to. The next goal is crucial if we can get a goal. And goals change games and build
Yeah.
momentum, and the lads get great confidence from it.
And
Like,
you
but
know what?
I
It's an
just
interesting point because well, certainly I've been in situations where I probably didn't believe myself, even whether it's halftime or whoever you're
yeah,
playing. I mightn't believe that we're going to be able to, like Paul's saying against St. Pat's there, you may not believe yourself that you can be successful in the game, but I suppose you have to show
yeah,
them, the players, that you do believe in them. You know what I mean? That
yeah,
there is a chance to, as I use the term, to be competitive
yeah.
in the
Absolutely. I
game.
think it was a Gordon Strachan or something. I think kind of phrase. Tactics don't win games; players do. And I
Mm.
think it's like giving them that belief and that. I suppose at our age, a lot of time you don't really don't focus on the opposition. We focus on ourselves. Go,
Yeah.
what are we good at? What are our strengths? What way do we play? If we go out and play like this to our strengths every week, don't worry about results. Don't focus on results. Performance. What can we control? This is what we do. This is the way we play. If we do that, we'll be fine.
Just a
That's
bit on that as well, Paul. And I know you said you didn't want to sort of focus on half time, because there's areas in the game where you change things when the game is actually going on, as opposed to you're waiting for a natural break like a half time.
Mm.
I think as well in your training, in your week's preparation up to a game, and if you know the opposition you played against, and especially if you've played against them year on year now, and you know what usually they do, I think it's prepping the team the week or two out from a game like that is hugely important. So you're prepping them to play against a certain style, as Ollie did allude to. You're not actually looking at the opposition. You've looked at the opposition long enough, and if you have your due diligence done, your plan for the Tuesday, Thursday sessions before your Saturday, Sunday game, your fixture, will be alluding to the team you play against. So the preparation is done. But I think if you have a little road bump or a blip on your way there, and at halftime you're a goal or two down, and obviously that wasn't in the plan.
Yeah.
You see bigger clubs than you see Premier clubs on the TV, and they have to change tact fairly quickly as well. Because that wasn't in their plan, but it's sticking to your beliefs is from the stuff you've done in training. It's to just, as I said the word before, it's reinforcing what you did Tuesday, Thursday, and still trying to impact that on game day. And if halftime isn't going too well, you might have to tweak one or two things. But the concentration and the focus that you're looking for from your players is the reinforcement of what we did Tuesday, what we did Thursday, and the level that we did it to can now bring us back into this game in the second half. So it's actually just giving them the shot in the arm and the confidence to go out and make more mistakes, not as many as you did in the first half, and we will be okay. And to tell a kid, our kids, our young players, boys and girls, that we will be okay, it's a you give them tactical nuances and jargon and stuff like that. If you just tell your young player, we will be okay, and we're in this together, and together we're stronger. All those great buzzwords, they understand those. Together stronger came from young people. So you use terminology that they're very familiar with in the modern day. As
Yeah,
I
no,
said,
I think you're right. The language is a real challenge nowadays.
yeah,
Maybe as we get older and the players seem to be getting younger. But oftentimes, I certainly know when I use certain language, I'm just not sure whether they understand
no,
it or not. My latest one, and it's actually came from the Armagh footballers, the one the All Ireland is "We Before Me." That's my, which is simple and, as you say, Paul, easy to understand.
yeah, yeah.
Don't use it all the time, but there would be elements of playing for oneself as opposed to playing
yeah.
for the benefit of the full
We,
squad. Yeah.
funny to say, we actually went through this with our lads. Just was it last week? Because say that game that I was talking about a few weeks ago that we were down at halftime and we didn't turn it around in the second half and we were well beaten. And it was just after we just sat the players down and Steph and Brendan, we just had a chat and was going like, if we shout reset, reset, do the players actually know what that means? Like they're under 14, they're going like, so we could be shouting stuff and say, I think the game ended 9-1 in the end, but as the goals are going in, and you'd be going, lads, we need to get closer together. Our shapes all over the place. You need to get on the ball. Can we still play? And you're shouting all these instructions in, and it's just going over their heads.
Mm.
So we sat them down to try and go, right, here's the story. If we say X, Y, Z, this is what we mean by
Mm.
it. So everyone calm down, deep breath, just get our shape back, think positively. What are we good at? What did we set out to do? And away we go. And you see it, and we said to them actually about, and it actually it happened in the cup final on Sunday. The Drogheda goalkeeper went down injured. Probably wasn't injured.
Yeah.
That's a sign for, and you see all the players went to the sideline, went to Kev Doherty and Dara Doyle. They regrouped there. That was a tactic, I'd say, to go, right, we need to reset or we need to do something, or the management has spotted something that they're not just going to be shouting and roaring, oh, you go there, you move up here, keeper goes down, all the players go over, they get a bit of instruction, they go back out. I think not long after that, they scored from the front. Now,
Yeah,
whether
they did. Yeah, that
it's
was in the
because of
first
that,
half.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know. But you see it, and I see a lot of the teams do it in Europe. The goalkeeper goes down. If they're under the cosh, take the sting out of the game. The players go to the side. I was just having a drink, but it's a tactical chat with the
Yeah.
coaches or whatever to go back. And then it's a reset button, and then
Yes,
away it
but you
goes
know what?
again.
It's a great point, and particularly for younger players, it's a great point to take the time out to explain the language. Do you know,
Yeah,
whether it was language we used playing as young fellas or
yeah,
whatever, but to take the time because I suppose my lads, and I shouldn't think this way, but I kind of look at my lads as nearly finished in schoolboy football, and that shouldn't stop me from doing what's right, because there may be things they don't
yeah,
understand. But the younger they are, the more time you have to spend on because you could absolutely be going crazy on the line, going,
yeah,
why won't they do what I'm
yeah.
asking to
But I
do?
think it's
But
even
they
the
don't they
positions.
don't understand.
Yeah, the CDM, the CAM,
Mhm.
and all this, and they're saying it to me, and I'm going, that you're a
Yeah.
winger, or I'm a number 7, or I'm a number 9, or I'm a number
Mm.
10. Like,
That's all
so you
from
have to get up, yeah, with
it's
all
all
that.
from video games, is it?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
but
I
you have to be,
struggle with that. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm a CDM. I was
Mm.
like, oh, yeah, okay.
What's
Tell
Well,
me what that is. Yeah,
well, if you look at it, and again, we the three of us were privy to PDP ones and PDP twos during lockdown when it was done over Zoom. And from my point of view, um, looking at some of the coaches that were on that and the tutors that were presenting it, it was the language even some of the tutors were using. It might be simple enough for us to understand because we've been involved in the game.
yeah,
But even on the PDP2, I thought actually for some of the coaches in a schoolboy club we all know, I actually thought was pitched quite high for them. So if we're asking them to go out to impart words, sentences that they don't understand themselves, and I suppose that was my whole philosophy about what ultimately you try to do in a schoolboy, schoolgirl club, a grassroots club, is to actually educate the coaches at the level they're at
yeah,
on the coaching side of things, and then develop the coaches that have a bit of a draw to maybe push on to their youth certs and into UEFA licensed coaching badges also, and they're few and far between, by the way. Good coaches at that level. So if we're talking here on words like reset, and there was adults have asked me what's a diag because this is a diag, and I'd say, well, it's diagonal, but why don't they say the word diagonal? The world we live in has gone very much LOLing and all of this. We abbreviate everything. But what I'm saying really in that is that if coaches that are allegedly now trying to impart that knowledge to younger kids, if the coaches don't grasp it, how will the kids as well? How will the young players grasp it? And for me, I think that's a big one as well, because I do hear on sidelines jargon used a lot of the time. Just different things, put it in the hole, all the ones we would have grown up with, different things like that, and you're going, kids just
Oh,
needed, I
Paul,
suppose, a
I've
bit
used
simpler.
often, trying to get a player to drop into the hole, right? For to set themselves up for a shot from outside the box or whatever. There are some phrases that you're kind of going, how can I describe it any differently? You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
but it
yeah.
takes so long. Do you know what I mean? Because you have to explain, to show it in situations, whether it's video or on the pitch or whatever. But that'd be one of mine, and they don't drop into the hole. So I'm obviously doing something wrong, and I have to change it. Do you know what I mean? Because they don't do it.
Yeah, I just think sometimes because 99% of the time the coaches that come in gates of clubs are parents that are just in the wrong place or at the wrong time, or have met the chairperson in the supermarket getting a bottle of milk in a sliced pan, and
Of
they
course,
sort
yeah,
of they
yeah.
convince them to come up and take a team. You'll get loads of help, the usual, get loads of help and loads of gear. That might never materialize, but then just like yourselves and myself, even when my son was going through it, you take on that responsibility. But for me, it's the education of coaches. If
Mhm.
we can't
Absolutely, yeah,
educate our
yeah.
coaches, guys, to a level that they're dealing with for those kids at those levels. Like Paul, when you say so, when you come out with a statement like, and you're dealing with 17, 18 year olds, when you come out with something like maybe, and I know it was tongue in cheek probably, but there's maybe other aspects that you could enlighten us on as well. When you say things like, maybe I'm doing something wrong and maybe I need to go back to that. They're 17, 18 year olds we're talking about. We need to be at the 5 and 6 and 7 year olds because we're not bringing through the players. Guys, you saw the same game I was watching last night. Now, how we won that game, the international game, I don't know. The players aren't coming through. They're definitely not coming through. They're definitely not coming through from clubs. And that's why I would always say about, sometimes you don't need a director of football in a lot of clubs. What you
Mm.
do need is you just need a structure in a club that will facilitate coaches learning from each other,
Yeah.
learning from the governing body, and coming up with a structural plan, coaching plan for that particular club. Because one size does not fit all. All clubs aren't the same.
And by the way, just on a couple of points there, right, in terms of sharing with other coaches and language, right? So we were conceding goals from corners there quite a bit. And I asked Ollie for a bit of advice on it, right? And Ollie, if you remember, you, I think, texted me to say, do you have a player? And it might have been in the hole, might have been the term. Can you remember what the term was? Have you got a player? Is the player at the front post?
Yeah, that's what I would be in the hole there. Yeah,
Right,
Yeah,
so in the
yeah,
hole, right
yeah,
now,
yeah, yeah.
when I looked at Ollie's text, right, I had a moment where I said, am I going now? I know Ollie well enough to be confident enough to go back and say, what do you mean by
yeah,
in the hole, right? Because I actually didn't know. And I had the confidence to go back and say,
yeah,
what do you mean by in the hole, right? I don't think everybody would have that confidence to go back and ask. And then when you told me, our defending of corners is being transformed now because of we have that player in there. Do you know what I mean? It's just an
yeah,
example of sharing and also having the confidence to go,
yeah,
I'm not really clear on what you mean. You know what I mean? Rather
yeah,
than thinking, God, is he going to think I'm a thick because I'm asking the question? But it's a good example of language even with adults, you
I
know?
thought Ollie was going to instruct you to go out and get a new keeper, Paul, in the centre half.
But sometimes you have to things out of your they're out of your control, Paul. These are
Yeah.
within your control. What is
yeah,
you can,
But
but no,
that's it. And
but it's a
Ollie,
good
the way,
example, you know.
yeah, but that's what I'm saying. But you see the shared experience, guys, in the
Mm.
in your club between two people. That's ultimately where what I'm talking about. So you guys don't need a direct. That's what I'm saying. You don't need a
No, I
figurehead.
get that, but it's also
Yeah.
okay to ask. There's no such thing as a silly question or whatever, but it is
yeah,
Correct.
also okay to ask it. You know what I mean? If you're not clear,
Yeah, but
you have
you
to
have
ask.
to. That's the environment, Paul. That's the learning environment that we strive for in clubs. That's the learning environment that we try and create.
Yeah.
And if other like probably 90%, that's what you want buy-in of at least up to 90. Well, you want 100% buy-in, but even if you can get 80 to 90% buy-in within clubs to do that, because what happens is that especially in the football world, especially the sporting world, not just football, but in the football world that we're in, it's looked upon negatively when people actually ask for help or ask for information.
Yeah.
But that's the learning environment that has to be created in clubs to move forward. And I know clubs like the likes of St. Kevin's, League of Ireland clubs as well, um, St. Joey's in Bray, other clubs like Cabinteely, Templeogue, they have this ethos. Even Ardmore Rovers out in Bray, they
Mm.
have this ethos of sharing the information and learning from each other. And the majority of clubs, they don't
yeah,
go for just one person at the top. What
Yeah.
they go for is a structure of four or five
No, you're absolutely
people.
right. The culture is key and safety within it. So, for example, if I was to say to you and Ollie, just as an example, lads, I need a bit of help. Paul, you might be thinking Hamo was struggling. We need to get somebody in or replace them. And Ollie might be thinking, Paul just needs a bit of help. So if
Correct.
might get somebody down to help him, like two totally different ways of thinking,
Yes.
and if there isn't a safe environment, you're not going to say that. You know what I mean? You're
No,
not going
and
to actually look for help. Yeah,
a lot of clubs will have a knee-jerk reaction. A lot of clubs will just go, right, that's not working there. They could change. Not only could they change the coach or coaches, they could change the team. And the team becomes irrelevant in the club, and especially at underage as well. um, even thinking back to when I grew up through the 80s, playing underage in the DDSL, I pretty much, bar two players probably changing every year, you had the nucleus of 75% through a 6 year career in the DDSL with the one club. Whereas now, if you see the culture now, my own son, for instance, I think from the age of 8 to 12, he had one club, and that was in Dublin. And then the League of Ireland year is under 13s. That team disintegrated, and that was with one of the major schoolboy teams in the country,
Mm.
and that team, because of broke up with League of Ireland. So fundamentally, we have to look at and align leagues in we can't have a situation where Ollie has his underage team there, and they're coming into a League of Ireland year, and six players are whipped, because they're usually whipped in December time. They're sort of tapped up a little bit in November. You guys are in season at that stage. The other guys are finishing up in League of Ireland. There's no joined up thinking. And by Christmas time, you could be down a third of your squad if the players are good enough. And that's what happened in this particular situation. That two clubs came in and took seven players from that squad,
Mm.
but they couldn't go and sign any players, because they hadn't got time to sign players. And the other thing is, if they went out to sign players off other clubs, grassroots clubs, they would suffer.
Yeah,
So
of
until there's a
course.
bit
Yeah.
of joined up thinking
Yeah.
here and even aligning seasons, at least it gives us a bit of a chance to assemble a squad of players that we can actually work with throughout
Yeah.
the football, the calendar year, the football.